Hello, welcome back to Sanibel Chronicles. This is episode 19. I want to thank you folks who have subscribed to my channel, and I welcome viewers, of course, to please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Before I get started, I want to correct something I said in episode 18. I was talking about the leatherback sea turtle, and I mentioned they were the world's largest living reptile. Well, that was an error. I thought of it later after I had looked at the actual video, and I was making my statement based on the fact that the saltwater crocodile, which is now considered the largest, the heaviest one back in the days when the leatherback turtle was found, weighed about 1,800 pounds. And that leatherback sea turtle was found stranded dead on the beach at Wales in the UK. And I gave it a little bit of time to look at some documentation, and I discovered that more recently a saltwater crocodile was documented that weighed about 200 pounds more than that leatherback turtle did. So I want to know that I stand corrected, and when I do make a mistake, I'll certainly try to correct it for accuracy. Now today's episode is the last in the sea turtle series. And first, before we get started, just a little bit of background on the film. Back in 1969, we in Coretta Research decided that we would try to make a documentary film that basically covered the life history of the loggerhead sea turtle and focused on the work that we were doing on Sanibel Captiva Islands back in those days. And it so happened that the first refuge manager of what became J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge, his name was Tommy Wood. He owned an old Kodak 16 millimeter cartridge camera, and I asked if I could borrow it, and he agreed. I ordered film, which was still fairly easy to get back in 1969, and we began in May of 69. We loaded a electric generator in the back of the Jeep and carried it with a light bar and the camera out and began to try to become filmmakers. And over a period of the summer of 1969 and 1970, we came up with enough footage to create a film that we named Project Loggerhead. And now we'll take a look at Project Loggerhead. I'll document it or discuss it as we go along through it, and I will see you in the next episode about Sanibel Island's Bailey Tract. Thank you. Before we get to the actual film, I want to insert a note. The leatherback sea turtle that I referred to that was found in Wales weighed 2,026 pounds. So now the record on the largest reptile is complete. Welcome to Project Loggerhead. This bit of footage, the title, was done with a piece of plexiglass with plastic letters mounted on it. A far cry from today's video technology. This is my son on the right, Chuck, and his cousin Rob Kirkland walking northward on Bowman's Beach. Of course, many of you know that Sanibel is world famous for its wide variety of seashells. This is panning over the Gulf, back toward the south, and a large afternoon squall is building up over the mainland, and before long, Bowman's Beach will be under a storm event. This is a loggerhead track coming across the beach, where the female has crawled up the beach and is soon to begin excavating a nest. And here she is, actually excavating an egg cavity in which she will soon deposit her eggs. And as is typical for loggerheads, this turtle's carapace is covered with a wide variety of benthic organisms, all types of algae, barnacles, crabs, even seashells occur in a microhabitat on the loggerhead turtle shell. They continue alternating flippers, digging down actually as deep as they can reach, which is about 18 or 20 inches below the surface of the sand. We used several turtles to make some of these sequences. That's why the background, the beach background near the turtles will appear differently. Today, lights on beaches are discouraged because artificial lights will often frighten turtles. We normally waited to begin filming until the turtle was actually depositing eggs, because at that point in time they're sort of not paying attention to their surroundings. But in order to get this part of the nesting process, we had to turn on the lights, but the lights were kept in the rear of the turtle, not within the direct vision of the turtle. So most of them held, they weren't frightened away, and we successfully managed to get this part of the nesting behavior. Then the egg deposition starts. The eggs are round. They're not perfectly round. They're a millimeter or two out of round. They're pliable, leather-like shelled. And you notice a fluid is produced along with the eggs. This is used as a lubricant in the oviduct. But there's also some data that indicates that it may have antibacterial factors to prevent any bacterial inroads into the egg's development in the beginning of the incubation process. The turtle cries while she's depositing eggs. You can see that streak beneath the eye. Its legendary claim is that they cry because of the sadness that awaits their offspring. Well, that's nonsense. They have salt-purging glands in the orbit of their eye, and when they're out of the water, then copious tears are emitted from the eye. The covering process is done with the rear flippers. They pull sand back over the egg cavity and eventually get it pretty well filled up. Then they begin kneading it with their flippers, compacting it very tightly. And then the last stage of nest concealment, with the front flippers, they begin to sweep flipperfuls of sand back sort of behind them, and they'll move ahead a few inches at a time usually, continue broadcasting sand. And unless you're trained, it's very difficult to discover the exact location of a sea turtle nest. This is an unusual bit of footage. This is a male loggerhead that I rescued that had been, a stone crab float line was wrapped around its neck, and it was pulling about a 40-foot stone crab trap when I managed to capture it and bring it ashore. We took it to the Sanibel Lighthouse where I collected data on it, tagged it, and released it. This is a turtle that is missing the end of her front left flipper. Most of the sea turtles, the loggerheads that we encountered over time, were somewhat damaged by probably shark attacks during their lifetime. This is the turtle going back to the water. This is CR111, that's a tag number. And we documented this turtle nesting 3 times and published a paper on the multiple nesting in loggerhead turtles. And as I mentioned earlier, we had individual turtles on Sanibel that nested 6 times in the same nesting season. And that turtle produced 920 eggs during those 6 nestings. This is a turtle crawl up and down where eggs were deposited. The eggs were collected, you'll see that a little bit later, but in the beginning of the turtle nesting season we had to prepare our hatchery that was located at Refuge Headquarters at the Sanibel Lighthouse. And these are the Zajac brothers. On the right is David, on the left is Paul, and my son Chuck is working hard in the background. They're pulling all of the grass and weeds out of our hatchery compound at the lighthouse, getting ready for the 1970 season. And the actual egg collection was often done by kids that we took along with us. The right is Melinda Beatty, the red is my daughter Leslie, and in the left is the late Tricia Gross. My son Chuck on the right showing us an egg, young Billy Hammond on the left, and this is the hatchery when we started to put eggs in for the incubation process. Each clutch of eggs has a wire encircling it, a stake identifies it, thermometers give us surface temperatures and temperatures within the egg clutch, a rain gauge gave us precipitation records. Heat and moisture are important to sea turtle egg incubation, and here's a clutch of eggs being getting ready to be translocated into the hatchery. We always got eggs back in the ground within 12 hours after they were deposited, with virtually no ill effects to development. The egg cavities were duplicated in depth and in diameter, and the eggs were counted when they were collected, and they were second counted during the burying process. The largest clutch of eggs we ever collected on Sanibel Island was 182 in one deposition by a female loggerhead. You notice the eggs are dimpled. After about 12 days, as development begins, the eggshell expands and those dimples disappear and the eggs turn snow white. The rain gauge is in the background, and after about 53 days or so, the young turtles break through the eggshell and begin to tunnel upwards. And this bit of footage here is, you'll notice all of a sudden a tiny flipper poke through the sand. And exodus from the nest, usually it starts about 9 o'clock at night once the beach sand has cooled down a little bit. And I've noticed there's a trend now that call this phase of the loggerhead's life cycle that the turtles boil out of the nest. I always use the term erupt. Boiling to me is not sufficient to describe what's actually going on. In boiling, something leaves the surface and disappears. But I use the term erupting because, like a volcano, the young turtles rise up out of the crater and disperse as lava would, and always disperse unless there are artificial lights around. They disperse and go directly to the Gulf of Mexico. At this point, they're nearly 2 inches long.